Here's the question. How much of these waves are you getting from your phone? I sent Dr. Butch Rosser, one of my core team experts, to investigate.
Before every cell phone is sold, it has to be tested and meet stringent government standards for radiation exposure. One of the few labs that does the testing, RF Exposure, is based in San Diego. I was offered a rare opportunity to go behind closed doors to see just how it's done. Hi, I'm Dr. Butch Rosser. The lab is run by Jay Moulton.
What we have here is we got a robotic arm that we use that moves around this probe, and the probe is what actually does all the measurements.
Okay.
And the probe will come around and go into a tub that is...
Oh, that's what, this is a tub?
This is a tub, and it's in the form of the human head, and that way you can do the left and the right side.
And then it measures the RF exposure or radiation exposure with this precise robotic arm of yours,
Correct.
Right? I gotta get involved. I'm getting out of this coat. You gotta let me just work with you today. I'm your lab assistant today, okay? Now, what we want you to do is to test two of the more popular phones. We're gonna go full contact to the ear. We're gonna move it away about 1 inch. And then we're going to have it in the speaker or earpiece position like this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
To do the test, we will attach the phones to this model of the human head at the spot where the ear would be located. This model is the standard size mandated by the government for testing cell phones. But as it turns out, only 3% of the population actually has a head this size. That head is closer to my size head, or maybe a little bit bigger. What about women and children? Is this test going to be applicable to the safety of women and children?
It hasn't been proven one way or another yet, but they are, there has been talk and they've been looking at it.
To start the testing, we fill the mold with a substance designed to simulate human tissue.
So it represents the electrical properties of the human head so that we see how much of that energy will penetrate in through that tissue.
Next, the mechanical probe is inserted into the fluid. Finally, Jay simulates making a phone call with the phone placed against the head, while the mechanical probe moves through the mixture to measure the radiation emitted by the phone. The radiation levels show up on a computer monitor.
Well, the yellow shows where the hottest point is on the phone.
Hottest here means the highest level of radiation being transmitted to the head. I can't wait to see if there's a difference as you move the phone away from your head. What our test confirmed, there is a difference. A big one.
If you look at the numbers there, the 1 inch, you're dropping 70 to 80%, and then when you get further out, even at the 3 inch, it drops even further than that.
Translated, that means if your phone is against your head, you're exposed to your phone's maximum amount of radiation, 100%. But moving your phone just 1 inch away from your head, you're exposed to only 15%. 3 inches away and you're exposed to just 5%, almost no radiation. In the end, the phones we tested both came in under federal guidelines.
They're both well below the FCC limit, but there's a lot of other variables that goes into how much radiation you're going to have.
Now the French, as I said, are more advanced than us in many ways. What they did in 2015, the government actually tested phones. We've never done that here in the United States. That's one of the things that has to change. The government had independent testing of more than 400 phones that they purchased off the shelf. In the United States, industry can provide whatever phone they want for testing. Think about it. They get to cherry pick it. What they found is that 9 out of 10 phones exceeded the European limits. And here's the iPhone 5, which of course doesn't exist very much anymore. And when they measured the iPhone 5 radiation at body contact, indicated by the red there, look at what they found. Body contact. It exceeded the standard, which is the yellow. It exceeded the standard by 3 times. And if you apply the US standard, which by the way, on paper, is more stringent than the French, it would exceed our standard by 6-fold. 6-fold. That may explain why we're seeing so many unknown phenomena in our young people today. And here's an example of what the Canadians did.
This is a special edition of Marketplace.
Most of us carry our phones next to our body. And why wouldn't we?
Science, tests, and the hidden message in your cell phone.
So the tests are all done.
Tests are all finished.
And
The number exceeded the limit. It went up significantly with each one of the phones.
That's right. The phones exceeded the safety limit when they were moved right against the body. The radiation absorbed increased 3 to 4 times.
Those results were carried out by the Canadian Broadcast Corporation 3 years ago. The US government ignored them. That was a 6-figure investigation. Recently, the Chicago Tribune tried to replicate it. This is what they found.
Still, we at the Chicago Tribune wondered, how much radiation exposure do phones really cause? We bought more than a dozen phones and had them tested by an accredited lab using standard procedures. To test each one, the lab owner used a special mixture of fluids that mimics the electrical properties of the body. He poured that into a fiberglass tub. Then he secured a phone underneath the tub and set it to operate at full power. A robotic arm dipped up and down in the fluid, measuring the amount of radiation it was absorbing. There were 2 main things we wanted to know. First, would the phones meet the safety limit if tested at the same distance from the body as the manufacturer's own testing? It turned out that some phones exceeded the limit. Next, we noticed that federal rules allow phone manufacturers to test phones up to 25 millimeters away from a simulated body. That's nearly an inch. The rules reflect times when many people carried their phones in belt clips or even holsters, not that close to the body. So our second question was, what if phones were tested at a smaller distance to reflect how people carry their phones today, like in a pocket? This is crucial. Typically, the farther away a phone is away from simulated tissue, the less exposure to radiation. So we moved the phones in closer to 2 millimeters, or less than 1/10 of an inch. At this distance, radiation exposure often exceeded the safety standard.
It exceeded it in the Chicago Tribune tests, sometimes as much as 5-fold. They took the 3 most popular phones to test. They published these results. The FCC said it would look into it. Well, they did. And you know what they did? This is absolutely outrageous. They tested phones with their old system, allowing the phone to be tested like it was in a holster, up to 1 inch off the body. And they said, they're fine. Well, of course they're fine. Every millimeter off the body gives you 15% less exposure. I mean, this is an astonishing arrogance on the part of the agency. It takes the American public to be a fool, which of course there's a lot of precedent for lately. But I'm hoping that those of you who are listening to this will join us at Environmental Health Trust and stand up to the FCC and say enough. Pay attention to the science. Wake up like the French government has. Wake up like the Indian government has. At least let us have information so we can make informed choices. If people want to expose their children to microwave radiation going through their brain, I guess they should have the right to do that, although I think it's a kind of child abuse, frankly. And I hope that by sharing this information here today with Hippocrates and others, the real truth about health will become known more broadly.